The most formidable power move in any human interaction is not rooted in destruction, confrontation, or even revenge. It is found in silence, in withdrawal, in the deliberate act of leaving another person without an ending, without an explanation, and without the closure they so desperately seek. This subtle yet profound tactic wields an unparalleled psychological impact, one that lingers far longer than any overt act of aggression. Niccolò Machiavelli, the master of strategic influence, understood a fundamental truth about human nature. People are not primarily addicted to pleasure, nor even to love, but to certainty. The human mind is wired to crave finality, to seek a clean conclusion, a neatly organized box in which to categorize and store life's events. Without this resolution, individuals unravel, their thoughts spiral, their emotions churn, and they find themselves unable to move forward. This is precisely why withholding closure emerges as one of the most devastating psychological weapons in your arsenal. Closure grants peace, its absence breeds turmoil, and in that turmoil, the other person remains perpetually vulnerable to your influence, tethered to the unresolved shadow of your presence. Most people believe their deepest desire is happiness, but in truth, what they yearn for most is answers. They want to know why something happened, where they stand in the aftermath, and how the story concludes. Consider the plight of someone abandoned without explanation. On the surface, their life may appear intact. They go to work, they smile, they carry on. But beneath this facade, their mind is shackled to a single haunting question. Why? This unanswered question becomes your leverage, a silent force that keeps you embedded in their thoughts long after you've walked away. When you provide closure, you grant freedom. You untie the knot of their uncertainty, allowing them to walk away lighter, calmer, and at peace. But when you withhold answers, you deny them this release. They cannot walk away. You become a fixture in their mind, an unsolved equation they revisit obsessively. Long after the moment has passed, you own their attention, not through force, but through the power of absence. Machiavelli's wisdom underscores this approach. Never explain more than you must. The more you explain, the more you free them. The less you explain, the longer they carry you. A complete story dies, an incomplete one lives forever. This principle is why Shakespeare's plays, with their neatly tied conclusions, eventually fade from active engagement, while Machiavelli's lessons endure across centuries. Shakespeare offered finality. Machiavelli dealt in principles, open-ended doorways that invite perpetual reinterpretation. By refusing to seal the door shut, he ensured that minds would continue to push against it, century after century, keeping his influence alive. This same principle applies to interpersonal dynamics. Never give someone the final page of your story. In a heated argument, if you pour out every emotion, explain your position fully, and slam the door behind you, the other person may feel wounded, but they will recover. Within a week, they will sleep soundly, their mind at rest. But a quiet departure, one that leaves them uncertain of your thoughts, your anger, or your intentions, will haunt them for months. They will lie awake, replaying the moment, searching for clues they cannot find. The unfinished holds far greater power than the finished, because the human mind cannot resist an unsolved puzzle. Curiosity gnaws at them, doubt multiplies, memories loop endlessly. The unanswered question becomes a hook, tugging relentlessly at their psyche, refusing to let go. Machiavelli advised that it is wiser to appear less transparent than you truly are. When you leave others guessing, you shift the burden of interpretation onto them. Without your explanations, they begin inventing their own. Without your intentions laid bare, they start imagining your next move. Without closure, they rewrite your story in 1,000 different ways, each version a testament to your lingering presence in their mind. Every theory they conjure costs them energy. Every imagined conversation deepens the imprint you've left, and the brilliance of this strategy lies in its asymmetry. While they expend their mental resources spinning narratives, you move forward untouched by their turmoil, free to act while they remain trapped in the void you created. Consider how often people demand closure in their relationships, their arguments, or their experiences of betrayal. They plead, "Just give me honesty," or "I just need to understand." What they are truly asking is, "Please free me from this uncertainty." They believe that knowing the truth will heal them, that it will allow them to move on, but they fail to see that closure is often nothing more than a ceremonial exit, a neat ribbon tied around a wound to make it presentable. It is a ritual of release, one that benefits them far more than it benefits you. By granting closure, you relinquish your leverage, you hand them the key to their emotional prison, allowing them to walk away unencumbered, but by withholding it, you ensure that they remain bound to you, circling back to the unresolved question of your absence. Machiavelli would caution that true control lies in never giving others the means to escape your influence. To provide closure is to surrender power, to withhold it is to maintain dominion over their thoughts. In a world obsessed with healthy communication, where we are urged to end things properly, to be clear, to be transparent, to offer closure, the question must be asked: who truly benefits? Closure serves the other person, not you. It grants them peace, freedom, and the ability to walk away with their head held high, feeling resolved. But why should you offer such a gift to those who have misread you, mishandled you, or underestimated your value? If someone has wronged you, betrayed you, or failed to see your worth, silence is a far colder, sharper, and more enduring response than any words could ever be. You don't curse them, you don't scream, you don't explain, you simply leave, and in that act of departure, they are left to carry the weight of an unfinished sentence, a burden that follows them wherever they go. Every explanation you offer is a rope you hand to them, a tool they can use to climb out of their confusion and free themselves. Machiavelli would advise, never over-explain. Speak less than you know, reveal less than you think. Leave gaps in every story. The human mind abhors these gaps, and will rush to fill them with imagination, paranoia, and endless replaying of events. And in this process, their own imagination becomes harsher than any reality you could have presented. Your silence transforms their mind into your weapon, forcing them to construct a narrative that keeps you alive in their thoughts long after you've moved on. In romantic relationships, consider the lover to whom you send a long message explaining why the relationship must end. They cry, they process, they heal. Months later, they've moved on. Your presence, a mere footnote in their story. But if you end things without a word, leaving only questions in your wake, they never stop thinking of you. They wonder if you'll return. They question what they did wrong. Your name becomes a private ritual, a thought that haunts them in the quiet moments before sleep. You linger in every relationship that follows, an unresolved spectre that cannot be neatly shelved. In conflict, the enemy you confront with shouted reasons gains clarity. They claim the moral high ground in their hatred, their narrative finalized by your transparency. But if you walk away without a sound, they are left replaying the conflict alone, unable to strategize against someone who refuses to become predictable. Their uncertainty becomes your quiet dominance. In professional settings, the colleague to whom you present a detailed case may nod, accept, and move on, the matter resolved. But if you let tension hang, never clarifying your stance, they spend weeks second-guessing what you think of them, their uncertainty amplifying your influence without a single word spoken. Fear fades, threats lose their edge. Even pain dulls over time, but uncertainty endures. A wound kept fresh by the absence of closure, the mind cannot stitch it shut, and so it reopens each time the thought of you returns, and return it will, for people cannot stop revisiting the unresolved. This is why closure is an act of mercy, and mercy weakens power. To withhold closure is to deny peace, ensuring that the other person remains bound to you, their inner clock frozen while the world moves forward. The lesson is clear. If you seek power, do not grant peace. If you seek control, do not provide the ending they crave. Silence, mystery, and absence are your greatest weapons, not because they destroy others, but because they leave others destroying themselves in your name. When their own mind becomes your prison guard, you have mastered one of the most potent laws of psychological leverage. A person begging for closure is really saying, "Take away my dependence on you, release me from your hold." If you give it to them, you lose leverage. If you withhold it, you remain the one thing they can't stop circling back to. Machiavelli would say, if you want control, never give people the key to their own escape. We live in a culture obsessed with healthy communication. End things properly. Be clear, be transparent, offer closure. But ask yourself, who benefits? Closure benefits the other person, not you. It gives them peace. It gives them freedom. It allows them to walk away with their head high, feeling satisfied. Why should you give that gift to those who misread you, mishandled you, or mistook your value? If someone has wronged you, betrayed you, or underestimated you, silence is colder, sharper, and more unforgettable than words. You don't curse them. You don't scream. You don't explain. You leave. And now they carry the weight of an unfinished sentence wherever they go. Every explanation you give is a rope you hand them. With enough explanation, they climb out of the pit of confusion and free themselves. Machiavelli would advise, never over-explain, speak less than you know, reveal less than you think. Leave gaps in every story. The mind cannot stand gaps. It will fill them with imagination, with paranoia, with endless replaying, and imagination is always harsher than reality. Silence makes their own mind your weapon. Your refusal to finish the story forces them to finish it for you badly. The lover, you end things with a long message explaining why. They cry, process, and heal. Months later, they've moved on. But if you end things without a word, leaving only questions, they never stop thinking of you. They wonder if you'll return. They wonder what they did wrong. Your name becomes a private ritual. You haunt the moments before they fall asleep. You linger in every relationship that comes after, because you were never resolved, never placed neatly on a shelf. The enemy, you fight back, shouting your reasons. They claim purity in their hatred. Closure gives them the dignity of a finalized narrative. But if you walk away without a sound, they're stuck replaying the conflict alone. They cannot stabilize a plan against someone who refuses to become predictable. The colleague, you present your case in detail. They nod, accept, and the conflict ends. But if you let tension hang and never clarify, they spend weeks second-guessing what you think of them. Their uncertainty is your quiet dominance. Fear fades, threats lose impact, even pain dulls over time. But uncertainty that never leaves, the absence of closure, keeps the wound fresh, because the mind doesn't know how to stitch it shut. It reopens every time the thought returns, and people cannot stop returning to the thought. This is why closure is mercy. Mercy weakens power. Withhold it. When you deny someone closure, you deny them peace. And without peace, they remain bound to you. Their calendar moves forward, but their inner time stops. So what is the lesson? If you want power, do not give people peace. If you want control, do not give them the ending they crave. Silence, mystery, absence. These are your greatest weapons, not because they destroy people, but because they leave people destroying themselves in your name. When their own mind becomes your prison guard, you've mastered one of the darkest and most effective laws of psychological leverage. A clean ending is a release. An unfinished story is a cage. Closure lets people rebuild. Suspense keeps them circling the ruins. Because once you leave someone without closure, they do the rest to themselves. They begin to invent reasons, blame themselves, blame you, rewrite the past, try to understand, reach out, seek revenge, and eventually spiral right back into dependence. And you, the one who walked away, don't have to lift a finger. You've already won. Here's the key. When you leave someone without closure, you create emotional asymmetry. You walk away finished. They walk away open, and that open loop dominates their subconscious, even when they pretend it doesn't. They say they've moved on. They act like they don't care. They perform stability. But the real story never ended, and performance collapses when the audience leaves. The dynamic becomes lopsided. You have processed it. They're still processing you. You are silent. They are drafting monologues in their heads. You have closed the file. They are stuck on the same page. This imbalance is not cruelty, it is advantage. Machiavelli would see this not as manipulation, but as positioning. You maintain power, not by controlling people's behavior directly, but by remaining the unsolved question in their minds. As long as they are still wondering about you, you still control the field. One of the most potent applications of this law is what people call ghosting. But ghosting isn't always immaturity. It can be weaponized, used consciously. It becomes a tool of disorientation and control. Here is how it works. You create a connection deep, fast, intense. You mirror their emotions, reflect their needs, bond deeply, then you vanish. No argument, no closure, just silence. Now they are stuck in a vacuum, emotionally revved up with nowhere to go. They begin to overanalyze, blame themselves, feel rejected, feel abandoned, and you are everywhere and nowhere. You become a phantom inside their psyche. The result? They dream about you. They resent you. They want to fix things. They stalk your behavior. They build narratives where they win you back. All of it is energy spent on you. And energy is leverage. It doesn't matter whether it is positive or negative. Obsession is obedience in disguise. To use this tactic at the highest level, you don't withdraw randomly. You engineer the moment of departure. You decide when the curtain falls, then let their imagination run the rest of the play without a director. Here is how to do it with surgical precision. Step 1. Give them a peak emotional experience. Right before you vanish, give them a surge, deep praise, passionate connection, or a naked piece of vulnerability. This spike creates contrast, and contrast creates memory. Step 2. Leave at the high point. Most people end relationships during conflict or decline. You disappear when things are intensely good. This violates the expected story arc. The mind cannot accept a climax without an ending, so it chases the missing scene. Step 3. Say nothing. Not I can't do this. Not it's not you. Not I need time. Say nothing. The less you give, the more their imagination takes over. Silence breeds projection. Step 4. If you ever return, do it without answers. Like a short message, a vague symbol, just enough to stir the ashes and let them set the fire themselves. You are not the hero or the villain. You are the unresolved character. Unresolved characters live longer in the psyche than anyone else. Here is the psychological twist. People who don't get closure don't just suffer, they often return not to fix things, not for revenge, but because they want resolution. Their mind whispers, you need to go back and end this the right way, but there is no ending. That is the design. So they reach out, and when they do, they are in a weakened state. They are no longer negotiating from strength. They are negotiating from confusion. You now hold positional advantage, emotional detachment, and narrative control. They have been thinking about you while you have not been thinking about them. That gap is the root of dominance. Machiavelli's philosophy was never cruelty for cruelty's sake. It was control, placing yourself where others must react to you. Never giving closure aligns perfectly with this doctrine. When you leave someone without resolution, you force them into your tempo. You force them to internalize you. You eliminate their sense of self-determination. You insert yourself into their emotional framework, and from there, even your silence becomes a command. You never ask for loyalty, but they give it. You never demand attention, but they focus on you. You never justify leaving, but they chase your reasons. This is not recklessness. This is strategy. The mind cannot accept what it cannot finish. That's why people don't need permission to hate you, but they need permission to forget you. When you withhold closure, you become part of their identity, not a memory, a scar, a reference point. And that reference point follows them everywhere. But Machiavelli's true genius was not merely in causing obsession, it was in positioning that obsession in public, so that others not only remain loyal, they defend you, serve you, and chase you even in your absence. This is where leverage becomes political. It is no longer about one person. It is about controlling the room by controlling how your silence is interpreted by the group. When someone doesn't get closure from you, they go searching for it elsewhere, and the first place they go is other people. They talk, they speculate, they ask, "Have you heard from him? Do you know what she meant? Why do you think they left like that?" Every conversation repeats your name, not because you're present, but because you're unresolved. Your absence becomes news. This creates social gravity. Your absence becomes a phenomenon. People orbit it. They whisper. They guess. They invent narratives. You didn't demand attention. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't even show up. But your silence now controls the discussion. They aren't gossiping. They are branding you. You become an image, not a person. And images are harder to kill than people. An image can be argued with, worshipped, hated, imitated, but never fully touched. That is an advantage no speech can buy. Scarcity amplifies value. What is rare is precious. What is inaccessible is desirable. What disappears without warning is unforgettable. When you remove yourself without closure, you create not only psychological scarcity, but social scarcity. People start saying, "He doesn't talk to anyone anymore. She vanished just like that." They never explain themselves. Scarcity turns into reputation. Even if people resent you, they respect your control. And even if they won't say it aloud, they wonder, what does this person know that I don't? Why are they so calm? Why do they never need to explain themselves like everyone else? Here is the paradox. Machiavelli would enjoy most. The more someone feels confused by you, the more they need to reaffirm loyalty to you publicly, just to protect their own image. They may not know where they stand with you. They may feel neglected, rejected, or misunderstood, but to preserve their pride, they defend you to others, because admitting they never got closure would mean admitting they weren't important enough to deserve it. So they rationalize your silence as depth, principle, or strategy. They become your public relations team to salvage their private dignity. That is leverage you can't buy. There is a kind of legitimacy that only contradiction can build. You must be present but distant, remembered but unreachable, respected but not available, admired but never completely understood. This balance creates an emotional mirage. People chase you, speak of you, swear loyalty to you, but never quite reach you. And because you never give closure, they never stop trying. The pursuit becomes their ritual. You become the altar. They kneel to a silence that refuses to dismiss them. This is how confusion becomes ritualized loyalty. They will check your messages years later. They will rewatch your words. They will study your silences and eventually teach others your legend simply to validate their own unfinished story. Once you create this loop, confusion, loyalty, speculation, your only job is to never ruin it with excessive clarity. Do not set the record straight. Do not explain yourself later. Do not come back to grant closure. If you return, return without answers. If you speak, speak without explanation. Maintain your silhouette. Never step into full light, because the power was never in what happened. It was in what you left unsaid. This isn't a trick for the weak or the unwilling. The stronger and more confident someone is, the more this tactic pierces them. Strong people are used to control. They expect to understand everything. They thrive on certainty, dominance, resolution. When you deny them that, when you refuse to be categorized, you confront their ego. The strongest start acting weak. They spiral. They reach out. They want answers. But you never give them what they want, because that is the law. Do not give closure. Let the mind become your cage. Let the ego do your work. Let silence rule louder than any speech. Power is not domination through presence. It is influence through absence. When you never give closure, you do not just control a mood, you infiltrate a reality. Every future decision they make is shaped by the gap you left behind. That gap becomes an omen, a lesson, a measuring stick. This is the final transformation of leverage, from confusion to obsession to myth. When a person cannot close the chapter on you, they turn you into a story, and stories live longer than explanations ever will. Everyone they meet after you gets compared to the ghost of your silence, not because you were perfect, but because you were never fully defined. You left before they could categorize you. You disappeared before they could dissect you. You stopped talking before they could destroy your mystery. Nothing else measures up, because nothing else is unfinished. In the same way, the closure they crave becomes the prison they live in, and as they struggle to understand why they can't move on, they unknowingly raise your status higher and higher in their minds. They tell others they were different. No one made me feel that way. I don't know why, but I still think about them. These are not compliments. These are symptoms of submission. Once someone starts defending your impact without your presence, they are no longer thinking freely. They are worshipping a feeling you engineered through restraint. If you had told them the truth, if you had offered an honest explanation, if you had walked them step by step through your reasoning, they would have understood you. And once people understand you, they lose fascination. They become sensible, detached. The spell breaks. Silence, however, creates a cliffhanger. It denies resolution. It builds a sense of almost knowing, and almost knowing is more addictive than knowing ever could be. This is why closure is not just a mistake for the ambitious, it is self-sabotage. You remove yourself from their life so cleanly, so neatly, that there is nothing left to attach to. You vanish too well, and they move on. You handed them the weapon to forget you. You made yourself digestible, and that is the worst form of weakness, to be remembered accurately, instead of being remembered powerfully. The world rewards the unforgettable, not the explained. When someone says they ghosted me, what they are saying is they didn't give me the dignity of closure, and I can't forgive them because I still want it. Even hatred keeps you relevant. Resentment is still attention. The one thing you must never allow yourself to become is forgettable. Strategic cruelty is to disappear while they still care. Then they are trapped in an infinite loop of emotional checking, hoping for a message, a sign, an explanation, anything, but nothing comes. The silence becomes louder than any speech. They hear it at night and fill it with theories to survive it. This law does not only govern romance, it scales. In politics, the rival who never hears your strategy becomes paranoid and overreaches. In business, the competitor who cannot read your roadmap wastes resources, shadow boxing the wrong target. In leadership, the subordinate you release without a post-mortem spends months upgrading themselves against the mistake they imagined they made. In social life, the friend you cut off without applause or spectacle keeps watching your life from a distance, unsure whether they were the problem or the lesson. In audience building, the followers you starve of constant updates begin to chase your next word, because scarcity hurts more than surplus satisfies. Never giving closure means you never allow others to feel finished with you, and what is unfinished cannot be discarded. But none of this is sustainable without the second blade, detachment. Detachment is not coldness for its own sake. It is the refusal to let your mood be governed by other people's reactions. The detached still observe, still learn, still feel the weather of the room. They simply do not hand over the steering wheel. They are free to move because they are free from needing permission to move. They are dangerous because they are unhookable. Detachment gives you control because it removes the bait. The world is a marketplace of hooks, insults, praise, invitations, provocations, moral tests, emotional traps. The attached take every hook and get dragged across the floor. The detached watch the hooks pass by and choose the one that serves their path. When you are detached, you select your battles. You protect your energy. You do not argue to be right. You act to be effective. You do not prove. You position. You do not plead. You leverage. You make desire a compass, not a leash. Machiavelli would say, better to command your appetites than to be commanded by them. Detachment is how. If praise makes you rise, criticism will make you fall. If attention feeds you, its absence will starve you. If affection defines you, rejection can erase you. Detachment is the firewall. It says, I will enjoy these things, but I will not depend on them. I will use emotion as a tool, but never as a master. I will let desire inform me, not enslave me. I will be grateful, but I will not be owned. That is what separates rulers from those who are ruled. Consider the battlefield of modern life. Work, status, attraction, reputation. Everyone is signaling, begging to be seen, terrified of being ignored. The attached play loud and bleed when no one claps. The detached play for position. They cultivate rarity. They speak less. They move less. They do more. They create silence around themselves, and that silence brings gravity. People lean in. People fill the gaps. People try to earn what is not being offered. Detachment is the art of letting others do the chasing, while you do the choosing. Here is the paradox of persuasion. The person who needs the outcome the least controls the outcome the most. Detachment gives you that advantage. In negotiation, the one who can walk away dictates terms. In seduction, the one who does not need validation becomes validation. In conflict, the one who refuses to be baited sets the tempo. Your calm becomes their confusion. Your stillness becomes their speculation. Your refusal to bite becomes their frantic guessing. Control is not a shout. It is a steady pulse that the room cannot ignore. Detachment sharpens judgment. When you are not drowning in emotion, you see what is actually happening, not what you wish were happening. You notice patterns. You notice incentives. You notice leverage points. Others miss because they are busy reacting. Detachment is a vantage point. From that hill, you can guide the battle without being dragged into it. You act on timelines you choose. You end stories when it serves you or leave them open when it serves you more. But do not confuse detachment with apathy. Apathy is dullness. Detachment is discipline. Apathy is fear of feeling. Detachment is mastery of feeling. The detached can love deeply and still walk when love betrays their standard. The detached can praise someone and still cut them off when they become disloyal. The detached can enjoy the party and still leave at the first sign the room is turning against them. They do not stay to be liked. They stay if it strengthens their position. That is control. Now combine the tools. Detach internally, so you cannot be manipulated. Deny closure externally, so others cannot escape your gravity. This is not cruelty. This is leverage. It keeps you free while keeping others invested. You resist the pull while creating pull. You are unchained, while others tie their stories to your silhouette. The more you move without needing permission, the more people ask permission to move with you. To practice this, stop narrating your intentions. Stop live streaming your standards. Stop explaining yourself to people who have already shown they do not listen. Live your rule. Enforce it. Leave when it is broken. Do not send paragraphs. Do not stage a courtroom. Do not donate your peace to other people's drama. Detachment says, I do not need your approval to act. Withholding closure says, and I do not owe you an ending after I act. Together they create quiet inevitability. The only authority the crowd truly obeys. People will call you cold. Good. Let them feel the weather of discipline. People will call you manipulative. That is fine. Those who cannot control themselves always call the self-control dangerous. People will demand explanations, meetings, real conversations. Be courteous, but unmoved. The point is not to be cruel. The point is to refuse to subsidize other people's emotional bills with your time, your words, and your peace. You are not a public utility. Set your standards in action, not speech. Reward loyalty quietly and decisively. Distance yourself from betrayal without ceremony. Protect your plans with silence. Let results announce themselves after the fact. Treat your presence as a scarce resource. When presence is scarce, people either learn to value it or learn to live without it. And both outcomes teach you who truly had leverage all along. Detachment isn't a mask you wear. It's a muscle you train. Begin with small refusals. Refuse to argue when argument is bait. Refuse to explain yourself to the unserious. Refuse to chase people who repeatedly show they cannot hold what you give. Refuse to respond instantly when delay would increase your value. Each refusal is a representative. Like any muscle, detachment grows stronger under consistent load. Strength becomes stillness. Stillness becomes signal. Signal becomes control. Eventually you will notice the room bending toward your silence. Invitations become more careful. Offers improve. Insults shrink. Appetites cool. People begin editing themselves around you because they feel the boundary they cannot name. They feel the gap you never filled with frantic reassurance. They feel the cost of access. This is not mysticism. It is behavioral economics. Scarcity and certainty determine price. You control both when you are detached and when you deny closure. Others cannot price what they cannot predict, and whatever cannot be priced becomes priceless by default. In the intricate dance of human interactions, there are moments when speaking becomes necessary, when clarity aligns with your interests, when mercy enhances your legacy, or when instruction amplifies your power. Detachment, however, is not about perpetual silence or emotional withdrawal. It is about the disciplined wisdom to break silence with purpose, to wield words with precision rather than excess. When you choose to speak, do so with the precision of a scalpel, not the chaos of a flood. Say only what is necessary. Deliver your message cleanly, and leave the rest unsaid. Always leave something unsaid. The unsaid is the echo chamber where your influence lingers, where your legend grows. An echo, subtle and pervasive, often carries farther than the loudest shout. Power does not manifest in screams, pleas, or exhaustive explanations. True power lies in positioning, withholding, and selectively choosing what to reward. Detachment grants you control by severing your actions from the need for external approval. Withholding closure sustains that control by keeping your presence, your gravity, active in the minds of others long after you've left the room. Together, these principles form a rule that rewrites the dynamics of influence. You alone decide when to engage, when to disengage, and whether the story you've begun ever reaches a conclusion. This is not manipulation for its own sake. It is the architecture of a life shaped by your will, not the whims of others. With consistent practice, this approach transforms your relationships. Those who once drained your energy begin to perform for you. They strive to predict what will earn your approval, to anticipate your standards, to win what you no longer offer freely. This shift is not cruelty, it is order. People respect what is scarce and rationed. They devalue what is given without restraint. Detachment teaches others the price of your attention, while withholding closure ensures they remember you long after you've moved on. One protects your inner peace, the other projects your influence outward, embedding you in the thoughts and narratives of others. The ultimate goal is not to make enemies suffer or lovers beg. It is far greater to craft a life that bends to your will, rather than buckling under the noise of other people's desires. Detachment grants you quiet dominion, a mastery over your time, attention, decisions, and emotions. It allows you to move through the world unencumbered by the need for validation, unshackled from the weight of others' expectations. And when you choose to walk away from a room that no longer meets your standards, you leave no grand speech, no final reckoning, only a silhouette. That silhouette becomes a puzzle they cannot solve. They argue with it, they try to decode it, they lie awake searching for the words that will make it make sense. But those words never come. The silhouette endures, and the room rearranges itself around the empty space you've left behind. This strategy requires discipline and intentionality. When you speak, let your words be deliberate, each one chosen to serve your purpose. Avoid the temptation to over-explain, to fill the silence with unnecessary detail. Every word you withhold adds weight to those you choose to share. The gaps you leave become spaces where others project their assumptions, their fears, their desires, keeping you alive in their minds without requiring your presence. This is the essence of influence, to remain a force in the world, not through constant engagement, but through the deliberate absence that compels others to fill the void. Detachment is not about becoming cold or unfeeling. It is about mastering your emotional responses so they serve you, not others. It means observing the room, feeling its pulse, but never surrendering your agency to its demands. By refusing to let others' reactions dictate your mood, you preserve your clarity and sharpen your judgment. You see opportunities where others see only chaos, and you act with precision where others flounder in reaction. Withholding closure, meanwhile, is the art of leaving others in a state of unresolved tension. It is not about cruelty, but about leverage. When you deny someone a neat ending, you deny them the ability to move on cleanly. Their mind becomes a stage where you remain the central character. Even in your absence, they replay your actions, invent your motives, and construct endless narratives to explain the unexplainable. Each of these mental exercises costs them energy, while you remain free, unburdened by their turmoil. This dynamic creates a profound asymmetry. You are finished with them, but they are not finished with you. They may claim to have moved on, may act as though they are unaffected, but the unresolved nature of your departure ensures that you linger in their subconscious. They draft monologues in their heads, trying to resolve the story you left open. You, meanwhile, have closed the chapter and moved forward, your energy preserved, your focus intact. Over time, this practice reshapes the way others interact with you. Those who once took your attention for granted begin to recognize its value. They approach you with greater care, their invitations more thoughtful, their offers more generous. Even their criticisms soften, tempered by the uncertainty of your response. They sense the invisible boundary you've created, the cost of accessing your presence. This is not mysticism. It is the behavioral economics of human interaction. Scarcity and uncertainty determine value, and you control both by remaining detached and withholding closure. What cannot be predicted cannot be priced, and what cannot be priced becomes priceless by default. Yet, there will be moments when breaking your silence is strategic, when a well-placed word or a moment of clarity can cement your influence or advance your goals. In these instances, speak with intention, but always leave a thread hanging. Offer enough to guide the narrative, but never enough to resolve it fully. The power lies in the balance. Give just enough to maintain your position, but never so much that you relinquish your mystery. The unsaid is where your influence takes root, where your presence grows into something larger than yourself, a legend that outlives the moment. In the end, the goal is to build a life that answers to your vision, not the clamor of others' desires. Detachment and withholding closure are the twin pillars of this vision. Detachment ensures that you remain free, unswayed by the emotional currents of those around you. Withholding closure ensures that your influence persists, a quiet force that shapes the thoughts and actions of others long after you've left the scene. Together they create a life of quiet dominion, where you control the terms of engagement and the arc of every story, whether it ends or whether it lingers, unresolved forever.